Good morning, dear students. So, welcome to the lecture series on analog circuits. Today, we are going to have discussion on first level multivibrator. This is lecture number 49 or 19th lecture from this particular module. Before getting into what exactly is your a stable multivibrator, let's try to understand once again the internal circuitry of your IC 555 timer so that it becomes easy for us to understand the complete working of the stable multivibrator. So I'm going to show you the working of the stable multivibrator. So this is how exactly the internal circuitry before that it looks. As you can see, I have drawn the internal structure of 555 timer, and you can see there are two comparators, and this is the pin diagram what you can see on top. It is 8 pin AC. Pin number 1 is grounded, pin number 2 is trigger, pin number 3 is the output terminal, pin number 4 is the reset button for this entire IC, pin number 5 is the control voltage, pin number 6 is threshold, pin number 7 is discharge, pin number 8 is VCC. And how it is being connected internally. So internally it has got two op-amps in the which are going to work as in the form of comparators, and it has got an SR flip-flop, and it has got a bipolar junction transistor which is basically used for the charging and discharging purpose. And one important thing you should remember over here, the main purpose of using the transistor here is to ensure the charging and discharging of the capacitor happens. And due to this charging and discharging only, I am going to obtain the certain square waveforms. Now here, as you can see, there are three resistors, 5 kilo ohm resistors that are connected from VCC till ground, in between the comparator 1 and comparator 2. And because these are 5 kilo ohm resistors, hence the name 555 timer. So this is how the name 555 timer came into existence due to this particular aspect. And this is one of the most versatile integrated circuits which was introduced first by Signetix Corporation, and it has got a very wide spectrum of application. Specifically, we are going to talk about its application in terms of monostable multivibrator and astable multivibrator. So basically, monostable multivibrator is nothing but it is going to uh, have only one but stable output state or stable state, and a stable multivibrator is nothing but it has got no stable state, or basically it is a free running square wave generator. And as you can see how the pins are differently connected between comparator 1 and comparator 2, just try to remember those pins, because using this structure itself we are going to add some resistors and capacitors and try to build the 555 timer structure in terms of monostable and stable operation. So with this introduction, let us just jump into astable multivibrator operation. Now, as you can see over here, the astable multivibrator has got two resistors RA and RB and a capacitor C over here. The BJT is there. Now this entire structure is what is the internal structure that I have shown over here. And you should remember, due to the voltage division rule that gets applied across these resistors, the voltage drop at this particular node, which is nothing but my control terminal. So this is my control, will be 2 by 3 VCC, and the voltage at this non-inverting terminal of my comparator 2, it will be VCC by 3. So this is as per the voltage division rule that gets applied across those 5 kilo ohm resistors. Now, if I just want to start with the working of this particular stable multivibrator concept. So let's try to understand how exactly it is going to work. And like I was telling, it has got no stable state, or basically it has got a free running state based on the charging and discharging action of my capacitor. And accordingly, it is going to ensure the waveforms are generated. Now, let's try to understand the working. Initially, let's assume capacitor charge, let's consider it to be 0, or I can say that the capacitor is completely empty. And in that scenario, let's try to understand what is going to happen at the comparator C2. Now this is a trigger terminal, which is my terminal number 2 for my 555 timer IC. Let me name the threshold is terminal number 6, and the control is terminal number 5. Reset button of my IC is terminal number 4, and the discharge is terminal number 7. VCC is 8. So here one more thing to understand, or to have a differentiation between the monostable multivibrator, which we have already studied, and I'm going to do the repetition of that, is you can see the threshold pin and the trigger pin are joined together. Now please remember, when we join the threshold and trigger pin together, that circuit becomes the stable multivibrator. So we are arranging a entire 555 timer wherein I'm going to club the, or I'm going to join the threshold terminal and the trigger terminal together, tying up together, then that entire circuitry will going to work in the stable mode. Okay, so let's try to understand. Initially, let's try to ensure the capacitor voltage is 0 or capacitor is empty. And here, let's try to apply the trigger voltage. Now, the trigger voltage is a small pulse which I'm going to apply over here. Now, when I try to apply the trigger voltage, now in that scenario, yeah, initially the inverting terminal over here will be at 0 volts, and the non-inverting terminal will be at plus VCC by 3. So as and when the trigger voltage increases, the voltage here also increases. But initially, when I start applying the voltage at the non-inverting terminal is at plus VCC by 3, and the voltage at the inverting terminal is held at 0, because I'm applying the trigger. So when I start to apply the trigger, right? So when I do that, what will be the resultant of my comparator? Now, as we have already studied how exactly the comparator is going to work, it is going to compare the inputs between the two input terminals, that is at the non-inverting and inverting terminal, and whichever is at the highest potential, it is going to ensure the output will be pushed towards that particular saturation. Now, in this scenario, my non-inverting terminal is at plus VCC by 3 and the inverting terminal is at 0, which means my non-inverting terminal is at highest potential, hence my output VO2 will be pushed towards positive saturation voltage plus Vsat I'm going to get. If this is added at plus Vsat, which means it is at plus VCC. So if this is plus VCC, I can say in terms of logic values as it is going to be giving me a value of logic value 1. So if this is a logic value of 1, then R terminal of my SR flip-flop, or R value of my SR flip-flop will be 1. If R is 1, which means the flip-flop is entering into the reset state, and which means my Q value will be equal to 0. So when initially C is 0 and you apply the trigger at C2, positive terminal is at like greater potential than, or the highest potential than the than the inverting terminal. So this is at VCC by 3. This is at slowly increasing. So this is the scenario. Hence, output will be pushed towards plus VCC, that is logic value of 1, and that makes my R equal to 1, and that will push my SR flip flop output value towards 0. So Q value will be 0, and in the meantime Q bar will be equal to 1. Once Q is 0 and Q bar is 1, let's try to understand what is going to happen by considering Q bar also, because Q bar is my actual output. Now, since Q is 0, what is going to happen to this transistor? Now, please remember over here, this transistor is going to work only in two modes, that is either in cutoff mode or in saturation mode. In the sense, either it is completely off or it is completely on, this particular transistor. There is no application of this transistor in the active mode. It is not going to serve any purpose over there. So because the base terminal of this transistor is held to 0, that means it is going to enter into cutoff, and basically this will be cut off. So this will become an open switch, and as soon as this happens, the capacitor through this VCC is going to charge by this RA and RB. Earlier, just look over here, what was the scenario that was happening? Earlier also, there was a VCC being applied to this capacitor, but because this path was on, because there was this path, and Q was having an initial value of 1, now it has become 0, and it's in its previous state, it will definitely a value, having a value of 1. And because of that, this transistor was on, and as a result of that, this entire VCC was never going to enter and charge my capacitor. This VCC would have taken this path. And moreover, because of this particular path, the capacitor also would have been discharged due to its earlier condition. So in my earlier states, my capacitor will be completely empty, and it is and there is no scope that capacitor will be charged. Now what has happened? This particular connectivity has been broken, and there is no path which connects this particular line towards the ground. And as a result of that, because of this VCC line and the voltage by entering through RA and RB, it charges the capacitor. Now the capacitor slowly starts to charge, and as soon as the capacitor begins to charge, and it also reaches a voltage 2 by 3 VCC. So 2 by 3 VCC will come over here to the non-inverting terminal of comparator 1. Now in the comparator 1, as soon as the as soon as the non-inverting terminal, that is positive terminal, is more than 2 by 3 VCC, and if I just look over here, the inverting terminal is at 2 by 3 VCC, and the non-inverting terminal is at more than 2 by 3 VCC, because the capacitor is charging slowly. As soon as this happens, what is going to happen with respect to the comparator 1? The result of the comparator 1 will be pushed towards either positive VSAT or negative VSAT. Now let's try to check it. What is going to happen? Now the non-inverting terminal is at highest potential. It is more than 2 by 3 VCC, and the inverting terminal is at 2 by 3 VCC, because of which the positive terminal is at highest potential. Hence, output will be pushed towards positive saturation voltage, that is again plus VCC, which also means a logic 1. So which means in this next phase, as soon as the capacitor charges, earlier capacitor was having a value of 0. At that point of time, R was 1, and accordingly I obtained Q equal to 0, and that made my transistor enter into cutoff state. And as a result of that, this entire VCC got entered into capacitor, and the capacitor started to charge through RA and RB. And as soon as the capacitor starts to charge, here the particular capacitor, one of the terminal is connected to the positive terminal of the comparator 1. So this particular node will be more than 2 by 3 VCC, because capacitor won't be sitting ideal for longer duration of time. It keeps on charging until it is completely charged. So as soon as this particular voltage reaches more than 2 by 3 VCC, the comparison begins. So in the comparator, the positive terminal is at highest potential than the negative terminal, and as a result of that, the output will be held to positive VSAT, that is plus VCC, and because of that, the output will be logic 1. So this logic 1 will ensure that the S value will be now 1. Now because of this S value equal to 1, what will be the output? Output will be again Q will be equal to 1. Now the moment Q will be equal to 1, what will be Q bar? Q bar will be 0. So just try to remember what has happened in these two phases. Once the Q was earlier, it was 0, now it has reached 1. Or I can remember in terms of Q bar, earlier Q bar was 1, now Q bar is 0. Now because of this, the moment Q is 1, the transistor is on. And the moment transistor is on, the capacitor won't be able to charge further. As soon as it has just reached more than 2 by 3 VCC, comparison occurs and 1 was produced at the output of the comparator 1. And because of this, transistor is on. And as soon as this transistor is on, it is acting as a closed switch over here. And as a result of that, the capacitor entirely discharges through this RB, and it is going to discharge to the ground. So it is never going to reach its entire full charge. As soon as it just reaches about 2 by 3 VCC, it is going to discharge. So here one thing to remember is the charging time and the discharging time constants are finite. And Hence, we are getting oscillations between two states. Therefore, we get a square wave over here. So this is how the entire application occurs. Now, if I just try to draw the waveforms of this particular the entire charging and discharging process. So let me try to draw the waveform here, the topmost portion. So let me try to just rub this out. Now here one thing to remember, what is that the time duration, or what is the duration for which the first charging occurs? So the first charging occurs from 0 to 2 by 3 VCC. Remember, as soon as this transistor was off, the charging started to happen and it starts to reach till 2 by 3 VCC, and as soon as it is just about 2 by 3 VCC, comparison occurs and 1 was output of this comparator, and as a result Q will be 1, and as a result this transistor is on and the capacitor discharges. So basically first charging will be from 0 to 2 by 3. And what about the first discharge? First discharge will happen from 2 by 3 VCC to VCC by 3. It is not going to discharge entirely. The moment it reaches the VCC by 3, what is going to happen here? Just look over here. Now let's say that capacitor discharging. The capacitor, initially when the capacitor started to charge, the comparison occurs and this was turned on, and as a result of that it is start to discharge, and the discharge path is RB as well as this particular point, right? So when this is the scenario, what is happening? The discharge path, let's say the discharging happens and the discharging value of the capacitor has reached less than VCC by 3, and as a result this particular node is connected over here, less than 3 VCC at non-inverting at inverting terminal, and VCC by 3 at a non-inverting terminal. Among these two things, which is greater? Definitely this non-inverting terminal is at highest potential, because here it has reached less than VCC by 3, and here it is plus VCC by 3, and as a result the output of this will be again 1, and because of which the entire flip-flop will be reset, and this will give the output as 0, and again the capacitor will be in the cutoff, that is in the off state, and as a result again the entire capacitor charges over here. So this is how the entire charging and discharging process, the entire charging and discharging process occurs with the help of this capacitor. So once it is more than 2 by 3 VCC, it is charged, this comparator C1 will be active, and as soon as the comparator C1 is active, the discharge path will be activated. So capacitor again discharges. During discharge, as soon as the discharge value reaches less than VCC by 3, comparator 2 will be active and comparison occurs over here, and as a result output will be thrown at comparator 2, and accordingly SR flip-flop will either give the output as 0 or 1, and accordingly this transistor will be either in the off or on state. So the moment I'm going to get the output of comparator 1, comparator 2 as 1, if the output of comparator 2 is 1, when this is going to happen? This is going to happen during the discharge phase. The moment this is discharging, the comparison here will result into this potential being at the highest value, and as a result I'm going to get the value as 1. So this 1 will ensure my output Q will be 0, and that will ensure this is off state, or it is behaving as an open switch, and because of this again charging occurs. The moment charging occurs, this potential reaches more than 2 by 3 VCC, and comparator 1 will come into action, and the comparison happens over here, and as a result the positive terminal is at highest potential, output will be 1. The moment this one is given to SR flip-flop, the output of SR flip-flop will be again 1, and this will ensure the transistor is on, and the moment transistor is on, it is going to behave as an on switch, and again the discharging happens. So this way one comparator will consider or will take care of the charging, and another comparator will take care of the discharging action of my the capacitor, and as a result the first charging will be from 0 to 2 by 3 VCC, and the first discharge will be from 2 by 3 VCC till VCC by 3, and similarly the next charging will happen from VCC by 3 to 2 by 3 VCC, because the first discharge was till 2 by till VCC by 3, and therefore next charging will happen from VCC by 3 to 2 by 3 VCC. Again discharging will happen from 2 by 3 VCC to VCC by 3. This will continue. initial level only the charging will happen from 0, but in the next phases the charging will go from VCC by 3 till 2 by 3 VCC. So this is basically the content of my capacitor. Now if I'm going to draw the waveforms of my particular IC, this particular charging and discharging action, now I can just draw the waveform something like this. So charging will go from 0 at time equal to 0 till 2 by 3 VCC. And as soon as the charging reaches, what is going to happen? It is going to discharge. And this it is going to discharge till 1 by 3 VCC. This is 1 by 3 VCC. And as soon again 1 by 3 VCC it reaches, it is further going to charge. And it is going to discharge. Now as a result, this will be my continuous value of my capacitor. Now in the meantime, what will be my output voltage at my output terminal? Here my output voltage is fluctuating between 0 and 1, and that 0 and 1 will be retained for the duration when the capacitor is on or off. So if I consider that particular state, so I can just write the capacitor charging and discharging value will be something in terms of output voltage can be given as. So when the capacitor is charging, like over here, and as soon as it reaches 2 by 3 VCC, so what is going to happen with respect to comparator 1? It is going to fetch me a value of 1. So this 1 will ensure the transistor is on, and as a result, the capacitor discharges. So until 2 by 3 VCC of my capacitor charge, my output will be here 1. As soon as it reaches 2 by 3 2 by 3 VCC, or it reaches more than 2 by 3 VCC, the capacitor discharges. And the moment capacitor discharges, as a result of which this here C2 will come into picture, and C2's output will be 1, which is going to make R value equal to 1, and that in turn is going to make Q will be equal to going to ensure the entire reset going to happen with respect to my Q. That is going to give me a value of 0 for Q, and Q bar will be 1. So once the discharging occurs, at that point of time my output will change. So this is how my entire thing is going to work. During charging, my output will going to retain at the high value, and during the discharging, my output will be coming back to low value, and it continues until the capacitor charges and discharges. So while charging, the output will be retained at plus VCC. While discharging, the output starts to decrease from the value of your plus VCC till 0. So this is what is going to happen. So if I can just consider, see, I can consider either Q or Q bar as my outcomes, because Q and Q bar are my complemented value. So if I am going to draw the waveforms in terms of Q, this will be the value. If I am going to draw the waveforms in terms of Q bar, my output will be exactly the opposite, because these Q and Q bar will be acting as complemented value to each other, because it's a flip-flop. So accordingly, I can just say over here, my output will be now behaving as a complete pure square waveform, and I can also change the on time duration and off time duration of my this particular square wave by varying the charging time and discharging time of my this capacitor. So this is basically how the entire operation is going to work out. So if this is the scenario, let's try to just mention what are my time constants with respect to my particular charging and discharging. So here I can say the charging time is given by 0.69 times RA plus RB multiplied by C. So basically 0.69 times RC, and charging is happening through RA and RB. So both RA and RB will come into picture. And the discharge time is given by 0.69 times RB into C, because discharging happening only through this RB path. So while discharging, only RB will come into picture. And the total time is given by T charging plus T discharging So if I do the summation, it will be 0.69 times Ra plus 2Rb multiplied by C. So this is my total time duration of my this entire stable multivibrator. And if I consider the frequency of operation, it will be 1 upon T, and that will fetch me a value of 1.45 upon Ra plus 2Rb multiplied by C. So this is how the entire operation of my stable multivibrator is going to work. And just remember how the charging and discharging action happens through the capacitor. So just let me quickly glance through what is happened over here. So as soon as the capacitor charges and it reaches a value of more than 2 by 3 VCC, my comparator 1 will come into action, and the comparison happens between the threshold value, that is this node number 6, or the inverting and non-inverting terminal. So non-inverting terminal is at highest potential, output will be 1. This output 1 will ensure the output of SR flip-flop to be 1, and that will ensure the transistor to be in the on state, which is nothing but the closed switch, and because of which the discharging happens. So when the capacitor is charging over here, my output Q was 1. If I consider the waveforms in terms of Q, if I consider the waveforms in terms of Q bar, this will be exactly opposite, because if Q is 1, Q bar will be 0. I can do that. Because I mentioned Q bar here as output, I can completely invert the waveforms whatever I have obtained over here, and I can represent both the waveforms in terms of Q and Q bar. Ultimately, it is the square waveform that matters with proper duty cycle and proper frequency. So once this is on, discharging happens, and while discharging, you can see that no, this particular point, the comparator 2's inverting terminal reaches less than VCC by 3, and because of which the inverting terminal is at lowest potential and the non-inverting terminal is at highest potential, and my comparator 2's output will be 1. This is going to enter the flip-flop. R by R is 1, and because of which the reset action of my entire flip-flop happens. Once R is 1, Q will be 0, and because of this Q equal to 0, output will be 1. That is, Q bar will be 1. So you can just ensure how you represent the outputs in terms of Q or in terms of Q bar. It is left to the user. So this is all about the entire working operation of my stable multivibrator. And if I just if I just try to understand what is the duty cycle, so the duty cycle is the ratio of the time TC, that is charging time, during which the output is high, to the total time period. So that is basically what is the on time to the total time. So that is my duty cycle. So basically here I can write duty cycle equation as TC divided by total time multiplied by 100. And if I just mention what is the TC value, that is 0.69 times RA plus RB multiplied by C whole divided by 0.69 Ra plus 2Rb multiplied by C. So if I just do that, let me just try to show it over here, the duty cycle equation. So this is my duty cycle equation. TC value is what? Here 0.69 times Ra plus Rb into C. Total time equation is what? Here I have mentioned 0.69 times Ra plus 2Rb multiplied by C. So the C cancels out, 0.69 cancels out. So this will be my duty cycle multiplied by 100. So this is basically the entire working principle of my stable multivibrator. And I can ensure that if I want to generate a square waveform, my duty cycle should be 50%. And I can be doing that by equating this to 50% and calculating the relevant values of Ra and Rb. And accordingly, I'll be fixing up those Ra and Rb values, and I'll be ensuring a perfect square waveform can be generated out of this stable multivibrator. And because there is no fixed state in which it is going to stay for a longer duration of time, it is going to fluctuate between the charging and discharging phases or charging and discharging states, hence the name stable multivibrator. So this is with respect to the stable multivibrator concept that I was supposed to introduce to all of you in this lecture. And we have already dealt with the monostable circuit if you the working of the monostable circuit we have already been introduced to you in the previous lecture. You can just go through it, and for those who have just forgotten the concept of monostable multivibrator, here is the circuit which I am going to show you now. So this is the monostable multivibrator circuit, that is 555 timer as a monostable multivibrator. So this is the circuit, and this one is the entire internal structure of my 555 timer. And as you can see, the main difference here is there is only one resistance, that is the first difference. And the second difference is there is no connectivity between the control pin and the trigger pin. In my stable multivibrator, the control pin and the trigger pin have been joined, but now the control pin and trigger pin have not been joined. But nevertheless, the entire operation is going to depend on the charging and discharging of my capacitor. And the one more important point here is, here the charging and majorly the discharging is going to happen in a very quick amount of time. Hence, I'm going to at least get one particular state in this particular monostable multivibrator. But whereas in the astable multivibrator, I'm not going to have a quick discharge. Rather, I can say that the charging time and the discharging time constants are very finite. So that's the reason I'm getting two stable states or two unstable states in that stable multivibrator. So this is with respect to your stable multivibrator and the monostable multivibrator. Now let's quickly jump into one numerical. So this is example 9.7 from page number 409 of the textbook. So what he says, in the stable multivibrator, RA value is 2.2 kilo ohm, RB value is 3.9 kilo ohm, and C is 0.1 microfarad. Determine the positive pulse width TC, negative pulse width TD. Just remember, positive pulse width they call it by the name charging time, and the negative pulse width they call it by the discharging time, and free running frequency, that is my F naught. What is the frequency of this particular entire stable multivibrator? So all these things I need to be finding out. So let's try to get into um, uh, the solution of this. So the expression for my TC, what was my TC? TC was given as 0.69 times RA plus RB multiplied by C. So if this is the scenario, let's try to put in all the values. So 0.69 is constant. RA value has been given 2.2K. RB value is 3.9K multiplied by 0.1 microfarad. So if I just try to calculate it, so I'm going to get 0.421 millisecond. This is my charging time, or basically the positive pulse width. And if I want to get the value for TD, so what was my TD expression? TD expression was 0.69 times 2 or RB multiplied by C. So just substitute the values of RB and C. I'm going to get a value of 0.269 millisecond. So this is my on time and off time, or charging time and discharging time, or basically the positive pulse width and the negative pulse width, because basically the charging time is going to decide the positive pulse width, and the discharging time is going to decide my negative pulse width. So if this is the scenario, if in order to find out F naught, which is nothing but 1 by T, I will be requiring T. So what is T then? T is TC plus TD. So if I try to add TC and TD, I'm going to obtain, that is 0.421 millisecond plus 0.269 millisecond. And if I do 1 upon that, that is going to fetch me a value of 1.45 kilohertz. This is my free running frequency of this stable multivibrator. So this is how I can be able to calculate the some of the unknown terms with respect to stable multivibrator. So this is with respect to the stable multivibrator. Try to ensure you go through the content and you go through the this explanation and the notes which I am going to post it, and you will be able to understand the concepts. So this is it from today's class. And with this, I can say that the entire module number 5 has been completed. And you may expect one or two numericals with respect to a stable and monostable multivibrator. And this is one of the example that I just quoted now, and the way how they are going to ask with respect to the numericals. And there could be some numericals wherein they can say that they'll give the free running frequency, and from that particular point you are supposed to obtain the time, total time, and then the charging time and the discharging time. So let's just get into one numerical. If I can do that, that would be great. I'll just try to show you how to solve that particular numerical. Let's just check it out. Okay. Huh. Now again here also, if they are not going to mention about anything about the C value, you can always assume in the range of 1 microfarad or less than that. So that is again going to be the apt value. Okay, so let's just jump into one more numerical from the unsolved example. So one numerical which I'm going to take is 9.15 from page number 473. Here also it's a very straightforward problem, and you can expect one typical question in the examination. RA value has been given as 4.7K, RB value has been given as 1K, C value has been given as 1 microfarad, and he is asking us to calculate positive pulse width. Please remember, positive pulse width means charging time, and negative pulse width means discharging time. They won't be giving you calculate the PC and TD. They'll be giving in terms of this. Again, you are just supposed to apply the formula, and the formula is also quite simple to remember. Just we need to multiply 0.69 RA plus RB into C is my charging time, and 0.69 RB times C is my discharging time. And if I want to get the total time, it will be addition of them. So, and when I do the addition, don't add a 0.69 twice, because it's a constant, the charging constant what I am getting. So 0.69 times RA plus 2 times RB multiplied by C. So this will be your total time, and the free running oscillation or frequency of oscillation will be 1 upon T, or whatever value you're going to get, that will be your free running oscillation. So this is it from today's class, and with this we can conclude the astable multivibrator. So with this also I can conclude that the I think I have one maybe one or two numericals here and there. Maybe we can solve somewhere in the subsequent chapters. But with this, the entire content of module 5 is concluded, and we can say that we can move on with the next module. So let me conclude it today, and that's it from today's class. So thank you for your patience listening. We can meet in the next class. Thank you.